Now, in recent videos, I've been covering this weird social dynamic that many people find themselves in, particularly men in the West, right? Where they've been working hard and they can't seem to get ahead in life, right? Now, we're going to cover this particular meme, which has gone viral. It has millions of views online. For the US, we covered that before. In this video, we're going to be covering the UK and how it's kind of rigged against the men in this society. So before we move forward, I just want to focus on some funny aspects of the UK, right? Just to show you how the culture is. Of course, this is a meme. It's a bit of an exaggeration. I don't want anyone taking it personally here, right? But the social contract kind of is a bit of a scam, right? You have, of course, the flag here. And what's interesting about the flag is you'll notice that around a lot of government buildings, this flag is like least prominent. Sometimes you see this flag, but they'll always be accompanied by other flags. And what flags would they typically be? You'd have the rainbow colored flag. Also, you have that flag of that country in Eastern Europe that everyone has to support, that you can't even talk about too much on this platform. And that's where your tax money is being spent, right? Migrants, it's going to be paid to the rainbow flag community, it's going to be paid to a conflict in Eastern Europe that you don't really want your tax money going billions of dollars when your quality of life is continuously decreasing. Then, of course, you've got this funny meme of these women, which is a bit of a meme on 4chan, other websites, where this critic jokes made about how the woman in the UK might not be the most attractive. I'll just leave it at that. Then you've got this guy who's kind of a football fan, who's, let's just say the UK is kind of home of seed oils and things like that. And then also you've got a lot of dumb boomer advice, right? And that's kind of why I included this image, why a lot of boomers will essentially be giving you terrible life advice. They're not in the best position of life themselves, but they'll be lecturing you of how to kind of live your life. Or, you know, be consumed with sports ball, watching sports or whatever that would be, reality TV shows. It's quite big in the UK, that kind of culture. And I just want to point out two quickly funny examples, right? You got this guy here. I don't know if you've seen this guy who's got the hood on. He's called Sir Miles or Lord Miles Rutledge. If you look up Sir Miles or Lord Miles, he's quite a funny character. So he became famous on Twitter. He also has a YouTube channel. And what ended up happening is he liked to travel to dangerous locations. He went to Afghanistan, a few other countries, and he would kind of vlog his travels, right? And it kind of shows you how dysfunctional the country is, right? I don't know how much money he has, what type of lifestyle he lives, but it's kind of like this country in the UK, it feels like a dying country or a dead country. It feels like Canada, what you hear about Canada, or sometimes you hear about France or Germany, where it's just not going well. There's no sign of things improving. So you have these funny characters that will prop up that will just be like, oh, let me go to Afghanistan and, you know, basically form a brand of like traveling into dangerous locations. Bald and Bankrupt is another person who's quite open of how the UK is not going in the right direction. He travels a lot to Eastern Europe and in India and Russia and things like that, right? And then we've got this other meme here, right, which is, again, just a bit of a joke about the woman in the UK. I won't go into it because we've got to be so sensitive on this platform, but yeah, it's just like, if you're a man who's working hard and you're successful, are you necessarily rewarded with good quality relationships, good quality woman, good quality life? And more often than not, that's not really the case. There's no real reward for working hard in the UK. It really is run like a socialist state, and if you try to progress, they'll tax you even more, or they'll say you try to cancel you, or you did something inappropriate at work, get falsely accused of things. It feels like anything you do in this country, a bit like Canada and other cultures in some of these countries you've probably heard, where it's so easy to get cancelled, so easy to get overtaxed. You're better off just leaving the country if you can, right? It's very crazy dynamic. So this is the social contract you're in as a man, typically in the West, right? You have this social contract where a man is being exploited through high taxes by all these different dynamics. When it comes to the DWP, which is the social security system, you have many baby boomers who are doing quite well for themselves. You have government workers who've done completely average low-income jobs, but because they're from older generations, they had very good pension schemes. I know a pensioner who did a job where they were getting basically average income throughout their time. They didn't progress their career, and their pension is quite big. They get basically $3,000 each month as a pensioner. They almost get the same that they were getting in their job working in the government. which for the UK, I know that could be different for the US, but in the UK, that's a decent amount of money to get as a pensioner, right? You're basically getting your same salary as a pensioner that you had while you're working your job. But this is how ridiculous the social security system is. It gives such an easy life to anyone else apart from the working age and military age male, right? So this guy, we have this guy, Nick, who's hardworking employee. He's being exploited by, like I say, the pensioners who get to live a comfortable life, go on cruise ships. Then you've got other ways that his money's being wasted. Rightmove, he's probably renting property. This is a property website like Zillow. Housing's unaffordable. He has to constantly spend a lot of money there. Even when he's renting property, he's probably renting it from boomers who are renting out their houses or their apartments because they had a chance to make money and invest before things became really unaffordable. He's also spending a lot of money in terms of taxes to NHS, which is the health system in the UK, which is government funded through your taxpayer money, of course. Then you've got his money also going to migrants. The UK has many migrants coming across the shores, literally through boats that the government can't seem to stop. The government can track everything you say online and cancel you and visit you at your house to arrest you if you have the wrong opinion. But if you're a migrant literally coming across on a kind of inflatable boat from France to the UK, and they can't seem to stop that. They can't seem to protect the borders, but they can police every little tweet you put on X or Twitter, right? So his taxpayer money is going to help migrants. These migrants might be making money from the benefit system, maybe working some jobs, but also a lot of that money will get sent back through Western Union, which is the logo you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, WU. They'll be sending money back to wherever they come from, Middle East, Egypt, Morocco, wherever that would be, right? And then you've got a lot of his money being sent through the UK aid system, which is similar to US aid, whereby he'll essentially be paying through his taxpayer money, even though he can't afford to have a family, afford to buy a house, he will be paying international aid to Africa, to the Middle East, to give them a good life, right? Or improve their lifestyle, or push the neoliberal feminist agenda. A lot of this aid money isn't really going to help people. It's going to push the rainbow flag agenda in these countries, or the feminist agenda. So it encourages women to work or get educated rather than having kids, right? So there's a neoliberal agenda being pushed here. It's not really about helping these countries. The British international investment, right, aid. So it's another form of aid where they're spending $7 million on business class flights. A lot of this aid money is getting wasted by these rich bureaucrats, and there's lots of spending criticism there. There's all these other ridiculous projects that the UK has through its foreign aid program, of course funded by taxpayers, to help shrimp farms in Bangladesh, poetry workshops in Colombia and Latin America, gender lectures in Kenya, where they're pushing, like I say, all these agendas. None of these things are really about helping people. It's really about controlling these countries. So these are the type of weird dynamics you perpetually have. So we have all types of wasteful spending and not taking care of domestic needs, defense, healthcare, infrastructure. If you're in the UK, you've seen the infrastructure crumble, the streets are all worn out, parks aren't really taken care of, everything seems to be getting worse and worse quality, nothing's really improving. And you really see this dynamic quite clearly through this particular article, which we're going to go through here. So it's not just a fringe internet thing where millions of people have seen it online. It's more of a mainstream thing. Now you can see it's going to the Spectator and any other type of main publications. So here we have many British Nicks. So Nick is that guy we saw in the meme here, right, who's being exploited as an employee. Many British Nicks are voting with their feet. Some people are moving to Dubai. So this is quite interesting here, right? Many people, I don't know if you know this, but it's kind of ironic. So people from the Middle East are coming to the UK because they can leverage the benefits from the benefit system and the government handouts, to putting them in fancy hotels, giving them free food and housing, subsidizing their ability to have a large family, while most people in the UK can't afford a family. But at the more skilled level, in the finance industry and other top industries, people who maybe own their own businesses, they're moving to Dubai. So you've got maybe some Middle Easterns moving to the UK and white British people moving to Dubai, which is kind of like a circle of migration, right? And this is the thing, this has actually happened in many other instances. There was about a decade ago, they noticed this in America, where They call it brain drain, where certain high-skilled American workers were moving to places in Latin America where they had less bureaucracy. They could launch their businesses, particularly within crypto. At the time, it was in Chile about a decade ago, where they had, at that specific time, a more of a business-friendly environment, like lower taxes, less regulation. You can set up a business. If it doesn't work out, they're not gonna, really exploit you, extort you. You don't have these expensive licenses to set up a financial company. And this is the thing, right? Many people are moving to Dubai. Dubai has a very low tax on your income, low business tax, things like that, better quality of life for a similar cost. These are the type of things that people are focused on, right? Many people are voting with their feet and leaving. I know in the finance industry it's quite common. I remember speaking with a recruiter about a year or so ago, and they were kind of laughing about how bad it is in the UK, because he himself had moved from the UK to Abu Dhabi, which is close to Dubai, right? It's another United Arab Emirate. So this is the type of real world consequences, right? Rather than accepting their fate, people are moving abroad, right? Typically hear people from the UK maybe move to Dubai or Thailand, some cases the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, where maybe older generations can afford to live off their pension in some of these countries, or younger generations make money online and then do that, right? So it's worthwhile considering what are their options here to escape this toxic social contract. So this article highlights a few important points, right? Firstly, it says here, Nicholas, his graduate job requires him to live in London, which is on a salary he can't afford to do this, right? And this is the ridiculous thing. Everyone wants a high-paying salary, but if you want a high-paying salary, the kind of catch-22 situation is you have to move to a high living cost area, which kind of makes sense, right? But the rent will be exorbitantly high. So it's like, you want a high-paying job in London, well, you're going to have to pay a lot of money in rents. It's like, does it make sense to do that when you're going to be overworked, overtaxed, and have high living costs? You might have the social status benefit of working there and the job status, the job title, and working for a big brand name company, but could you actually live a better lifestyle and find other ways of making money without living in a high cost of living area, right? Where wages are stagnant, there's not keeping up with inflation in terms of your salary. So it's not viable for many young workers. Many people would just prefer not to engage and climb the corporate ladder because it's really comes at a massive cost. Next up, it says, the biggest loser in this social contract are the young urban professionals, the productive members of society upon whose shoulder the welfare state rests. Now, this is important because this simple line is pointing out what is going on in this diagram here, right? So the whole system is benefiting and resting on young urban professionals or working age military age men who are propping up the infrastructure and the economy itself, right? It contradicts the common narrative that it's rural areas, the working class communities, but really it's this demographic who are really propping up this system because they're paying a lot of money that they're earning in tax, right? Which props up the system for everyone else. And then here we have this very key quote, which I've pointed out many times throughout my channel. If mainstream politics cannot offer normal people normal homes and a decent life, they're going to look to political extremes. And you see this, without going into too much detail, last year with people, there was civil unrest across the UK, kind of wild scenario to be in. You see similar things in the US where people have just had enough, right? They can't live a decent life. They can't speak up. They can't say, we have to have a sensible migration policy. They get labeled, having racial motives or being far right or conspiracy theory if they want basic freedom of speech. It's completely ridiculous. And this is what it's doing. It's pushing people more and more to the edge where they hit their breaking point, right? And this is, people can see it. They're like, wait, hold on. Why I can't afford to do anything in my life apart from work and watch Netflix, right? Work and play video games. That's all people can afford to do these days. So if we look at this article collectively with that meme I was going through, right? So what does it kind of show overall? It shows that young productive workers, they feel trapped. They're in an unsustainable system. They're paying high tax, struggling with living costs. They see little return on their tax contributions. They're looking for alternatives, moving abroad, setting up their own business, pursuing extreme forms of minimalism, leaving the UK or turning to more radical politics. But what does it look like on the ground, right? What are the men typically in the UK actually thinking? So we're going to go through a few clips here. Let's listen to what they have to say. This is someone called Life After 40. He is a black British person who is over 40 years old, of course, and he has some videos that have gone viral, right? Even though he has a relatively smaller YouTube channel. And this video, it has 370,000 views. And I remember within the first couple of days, he actually had 200,000 views. So many people agree there's a darkness in the UK. There's a lot of negativity. So let's listen to what you have to say here.
It's worse than ever. And I was speaking to my cousin, because he went abroad. He travels a lot. And he went to Uganda. And he's just like saying, like, because, you know, he approached women over there, chatted them up and stuff. And it wasn't so much that they were like up for it. But he said to a woman, "Hey, beautiful, how you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?" And he told me that. And I was like, what? They actually greeted you with a positive response? I don't think you get that over here anymore. There's all this kind of like, or they pretend you're not there, or they just think you're dangerous, or like there's just no one trusts anyone anymore. No one likes anyone anymore, it feels. Everyone's keeping to their own selves. Everyone's sort of separate from each other. It doesn't feel united here at all. And there's a real sort of like feeling of just hate and depression. And listen, the weather's never been great. It's England, but I don't know, it feels like people are really representing the weather when it's dark and gloomy and there's hopelessness and the economy and stuff. I just really feel that. And then like you get the racist aspects of it, get the kind of like, oh, you're taking our, you know, too much of you coming into this country, taking our jobs. And then the other aspect of it where it's like, yeah, people are coming and changing the way Britain is. And you got so much stuff, man, so much stuff. It just really feeds into this kind of dark, gloomy, this darkness feel. I just sense it. And this is part of the reason why we'll eventually look to leave, because this isn't the Great Britain that I used to love. The Great Britain that I used to know. When I don't even mean now, you go to your butchers and go, yeah. You go in there and it's just like, for example, you say, oh yeah, you know, have you got any like, I don't know, chicken drumsticks? It's like, mate, you know, chicken drumsticks, mate, you know, you look like a drumstick or something like that. Or whatever, so do you, like, yeah, how you do, you know. That's gone, it feels. Even, I remember like Christmas time, even you say, you know, Merry Christmas, darling, you know, or something like that to the shopkeeper or something, you know. Have a good one. You prepared? You all sorted for the new year? You know. No one wants to say anything because people are scared you'll offend someone by mentioning Christmas, even though this is supposed to be a Christian country. People offended are, you know. Oh man, it just makes you just not like being here anymore. I miss the old England. I miss the old London. I miss the old Great Britain. It just seems so removed from its former glory. And a lot of people are talking about leaving. A lot of people are leaving. I'd hope to be one of them soon. I've just got to get things together. But does anyone else experience this?
So as I say, you can see, right, this guy's got 370,000 views. He's expressing these type of sentiments. It must be resonating with people. 16,000 likes. And this is, again, like a small channel. He's not like a big YouTuber, right? So, you know, the fact that, like I say, these weird social dynamics which aren't reflected in the particular diagram, it's just talking about being exploited from tax money. Let's talk about it in a bit of detail, right? So firstly, men being friendly to women, typically she can take it the wrong way unless she likes the guy. You know, when you're outside of the West, you can be friendly with general people, men friendly with women without it becoming some awkward assault or harassment type of issue where she can accuse the man of being inappropriate. There's been many cases that you know, you hear about every now and again where a man will go up and speak to a woman maybe in a shopping center, and then, you know, she might report him to security that he made her feel uncomfortable. You don't really have that in other countries, right? This type of weird gender dynamic outside of the West doesn't exist to the same extent. And there is a lot of racial tension underlying a lot of dynamics. A lot of people feel like maybe the migrants are taking jobs, they're getting government benefits when people can't afford, like I say, to buy houses or families themselves. Meanwhile, migrants have 5 kids and get free government house. So how does that exist in this particular weird dynamic? Then also when you add that to racial tension in general, right? We have it's a controversial statement, but when you have a diverse environment and you have maybe 5 different racial demographics, 5 different languages being spoken, and they're not English, or maybe one of them is English. And then you have like a broken society, a broken community, kind of people living around each other they can't trust. You have a low trust society when you do have very large levels of diversity, right? It's not like you have 2 different demographics or even 3. You have maybe 5. You know, I know when I walk around in London, you'll hear 5 different languages, and people might say, that's good, diversity is our strength, diversity is a good thing. I don't hate any demographic, but that's not how you build a sustainable society, right? If I'm walking in the park and everyone's kind of keeping to themselves and they're speaking different languages, and you can tell no one really understands or likes other people's culture. Some people might say, oh, certain cultures are archaic and backwards, other cultures more aggressive, or, you know, racial stereotypes, things like that. These are the type of things that create a broken society, and that's what you have with broken Britain, if you want to use that buzzword. Now, when he's saying he's looking to leave, many people are looking to leave. It's not just the high earners who are moving to Dubai. It's people saying, oh, it's just not friendly here. I'd rather live a low cost of living lifestyle in Eastern Europe, Romania, places like that. And he's also, I don't know if you mentioned it in this clip, but there's other instances where he was talking about how, saying Happy Christmas might be offensive to people because sometimes, people might be like, oh, you can't say Happy Christmas, you have to say Happy Holidays. I think this was a big scandal in America too, right? Where they were saying, oh, if you say Happy Christmas, other people might not celebrate Christmas. It's a Christian country, but, you have to be careful of other people's preferences and things like that and what they celebrate. You have to say Happy Holidays. So this is the thing, the migrants, or I'm not even blaming migrants, just people in general. If you have so many people with different beliefs, different lifestyles, different religions and races, everyone's tiptoeing around each other because they don't want to get cancelled or attacked for saying the wrong thing that might offend someone from a different demographic. And and I think one thing he's pointing out here with kind of men being a bit more dejected or being less social compared to, one thing I want to mention here, which is quite interesting and brings us back to this kind of meme here and the example we went through in the article, is that one thing I noticed in this society, and he into it in a bit of detail with regards to how men can be friendly with women abroad, but not necessarily in the UK or certain Western countries where men are expected to be second-class citizens. A woman can interpret any engagement as offensive, or if she doesn't like a guy, he's been inappropriate or toxic or whatever. A reoccurring dynamic you see in society and work, which I'm always tiptoeing around, and I'm sure you are too, where you're dealing with entitled women and insecure men. And this is really a manufactured dynamic. It's a psyop, however you'd like to word it. It is psychological warfare, where they've deliberately created a dynamic where men are feeling insecure, they're never good enough, never have enough money, never high status enough or high value man enough or whatever. And then you have a lot of gaslighting from people like Andrew Tate, who would try to use that in his own marketing schemes. And then you look at the way products are promoted to women, like, oh, a woman deserves this, a woman deserves that, like sense of entitlement, and you have to deal with it at work and social dynamics too. So that's kind of interesting considering his perspective here. Now we're going to look at the perspective of someone else, right, who actually did leave the UK and he's spending some time abroad. So let's listen to his perspective here. And again, this is a broad, very popular theme. He has a relatively small channel, about 8,000 subscribers, No Soy Rubio, and he has 192,000 views on this. So again, clearly many people have these sentiments, not just in the UK, not just particular demographics, but across many countries.
The second one, cost of living. Everything is so damn expensive now. So I don't have the exact figures to hand for inflation, but all I know is it's too much. And that my quality of living has decreased significantly. Just been through 18 months of industrial action to get a pay increase which is way below the level of inflation. So where that hits hardest, personally for me, is the housing market. So I'm not on the housing ladder yet, and with the way interest rates are with mortgages now, it doesn't look like I ever will be. Rent is extortionate now, especially where I live on the south coast in Sussex. So what do? If I stay here, I'm consigned to a life of working my arse off to pay off somebody else's mortgage. One thing I won't miss is the crappy architecture. I mean, look at it. That's a joke, by the way. And it's not just housing. I used to like going out to restaurants, I used to like going to the pub, I used to like going to the cinema, I used to like going to football matches. But you can't go to any of those now without feeling like you're getting ripped off. £6 for a pint of beer, £5 for a bucket of popcorn. 20 quid to watch a League Two football match, more like about 70 if you want to watch Premier League. It's just a general feeling of not being excited by anything anymore. So, like I was saying earlier, I don't go to any football matches, I don't really do that much. I haven't got much of a social life at the moment because of my age. I'm 42 years old, most of my friends are married with kids. All the sort of hiking adventures and stuff that I wanted to do, I've done them. I've done all the national trails in my area, the South Downs Way, the North Downs Way. I've hiked the whole coast.
Now that's just a brief clip of another guy's perspective, right? So, the cost of living is quite high. can't buy a house, can't afford to have a family. And what's interesting here, he's mentioning living in Sussex, which is outside of London. Even there, the rent's quite high. You normally hear rent being quite high in, major metropolises areas like, London, maybe in Birmingham, places like that, or in the US, it's New York, San Francisco, places like that. But, everywhere it's becoming more and more unaffordable for people. And the thing is, it's a case where you can afford it, but it's overpriced. And I deal with that. It's like, oh, yeah, I can afford a coffee, but do I want to pay £4 for it? Probably not. Occasionally I'll do that, right? Do I want to, I'm not necessarily someone who goes to nightclubs and bars, but some people go there and I'm sure they have the same question. Do you want to pay £10 for a pint of beer? It just doesn't make sense. And then you've got this lack of social life for single men. And what's interesting is the most rapidly growing demographic is both single men and single women, right? But in particular, single men. We hear how, you've probably seen the famous statistic that, I think it's something like 30% of women are single, but 60% of men are single, which basically means a lot of these women are probably dating the same guy and they don't mind sharing the same guy, maybe a high value male if you want to use that kind of cringe term. But a lot of men are single compared to women. And a lot of men are not getting the benefits of free dates and free food on dates like women might be getting. A lot of men are thinking, what's the point of getting married or being in a relationship with a woman when she has a promiscuous background? So when you have those type of dynamics, what ends up happening is that, you have a growing demographic of men who are single. What they're going to do with their life when some of their other male friends are in marriages, maybe they're a henpecked husband, or maybe their wife is walking all over them. They have to go and ask their wife for permission before going out with their friends. You basically have a lot of single men, and I see this all the time. They might have single men who are successful or not successful, however you want to define it. Maybe they own an apartment, they own a house, have a rental property because they worked hard in their career or live with their parents and save their money. What are they going to do with their time if they're not married and they don't have kids, right? And maybe their married friends aren't willing to socialize with them. And you know how it is when you have a married couple, the wife doesn't want the man hanging out with the other single male friends because she thinks they're going to go out and speak to other women and things like that. Well, some of these men are going to date abroad, travel, enjoy their life, enjoy their investments. Maybe they have a rental income. Some of these other guys are going to hang at home playing video games. Men are just going to hang out online on Discord and things like that. But also you're going to have a lot of these leftover men. There's a term, I think, in China or places, Japan, places like that, where they talk about leftover woman, where after a woman's a certain age, like 30, if she's still single, then she's left over, right? But there's a similar thing going to happen with men in the West, where they're left over, they're just single. I don't like to use the term inkwell. I know this platform isn't too comfortable with that, but there's going to be a lot of men who aren't necessarily low quality male. They're just not, they don't want to be caught up in a toxic marriage. They don't want to risk divorce and losing all their money, whatever they do have, or they don't have much money and they don't have much to lose, and they're just in this social contract they just don't want to pursue. And then what they're going to do, they're going to do what this guy's doing, leave the country, maybe find another low stress, low paid job abroad and live and enjoy their life and just be chill, right? So you're going to have a lot of people dropping out like this. And then the last little clip we're going to look through here is this guy who has actually lived abroad for about 20 years. He's working mainly in Korea, South Korea, and he's traveled to other countries, and he thinks, the UK is dying. Is he a problem for working abroad? Why are people complaining that so many men are dropping out and deciding to live abroad when obviously the country's not in a good position? You're not going to do well if you stay and fight. If you express the wrong opinion online, you'll be censored or you'll be arrested. And if you pursue a political solution, they don't seem to be working. Some people out there might say there is no political solution, if you know that quote. So let's listen to what he has to say.
If we go to something next with the rising cost of living, the cost of living crisis, as you'll all been led to believe by the news. Obviously, inflation is very, very high. The increasing energy prices, so all these energy prices going up, the inflation going up, the stagnant wages, right? The money that you're getting every single year is less and less and less. Each year you're not able to save. Each year you're spending more for the same thing. You have strikes, you have industrial action going on in the UK, you've got healthcare, you've got education, you've got transport, you've got infrastructure, right? The infrastructure. The really people in our country with healthcare, with doctors, with nurses, with workers, with staff, with education that are supposed to try and teach our young generation coming up. They are entirely overworked and utterly overstressed, right? So it's the same with the healthcare, it's the same with education, and transport as well. The prices are absolutely incredibly expensive. Getting a train to London, for example, or even getting a train to Glasgow or Edinburgh probably costs you more than a flight to Europe, right? Which is absolutely insane. Now, education, you've got budget cuts, you've got teacher shortages, right? You've got pressure on teachers at all levels. There's a lot of our young, educated teachers that are getting their education in the UK. They are getting their 1 or 2 years experience so that they can be, legally recognized as a teacher. And then they're going abroad to the Middle East, for example, to Dubai, to Qatar. They're getting much better incentives. They're getting better wages. They're being treated fairly. And maybe the environment for them is better than it is in the UK. This problem is systematic of the whole country. And the problems that we have right now are that those that are staying there, those teachers, those medical workers that are staying there are exhausted. They're completely disillusioned. There's no attachment. There's nothing in common between them and the British government. Absolutely nothing. So it's like a ticking time bomb. And it's only a matter of months or maybe a year or two until they go out of the country as well. Housing.
So this guy's making some good points, right? Like I say, he's has a message that's resonating with people too. And I just want to focus on that. So it's not just the cost of living. You've got a lot of skilled workers, he's mentioning in the healthcare industry, who are looking to leave and work abroad and try to earn a higher salary that way, right? You've got high inflation, high energy prices, and that's why sometimes I recommend you in my videos that if you're going to buy a place to live or even rent a place, try to focus on a smaller place, because the energy bills are going up, utilities. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't have kind of goals to necessarily get married and stay in this country over the long term. One of the benefits for me of living in a smaller property, even though people might say, oh, well, you should buy somewhere bigger, many people are really struggling to pay, the for a bigger house, right? If you have a 3-bedroom house and you're a single guy, like, do you really need 3 bedrooms? Are you going to rent them out? And that's a good way of making money. But if you don't want to live with people, you're essentially paying for high living costs, higher tax, higher bills are going up. All these like local tax bills will be going up, council tax, which we have in the UK. It becomes a bit ridiculous after a point. That's why you really have a lot to gain from being a minimalist, even if that's not necessarily your personality type or a life goal you had planned, right? Because when you have people like this, in this situation, which I've been in, other people have been in or dealing with right now, there's no incentive really. Like, why would I have kids and set them up to be in exactly the same position? Why would I be in a relationship when it would make this situation already weighing down on me a lot worse? So that's something worthwhile considering, and something I'd recommend you consider in terms of the timeline of being a minimalist. And if you want to escape that broken social contract, I think there's a phrase in the Bible about 7 years of famine and then 7 years of feast, where, being a minimalist and investing effectively, it gives you a way to kind of live a better life over the long term, right? You might have to sacrifice in the short term, but if you're investing effectively, you have more flexibility to live life on your own terms, whether it's saving money so you can pursue self-employment and pay for your living costs while you build up your own brand. It could be things like investing or buying rental properties, things like that, if you don't live above your means, right? And this is what I'm saying when he's discussing some of the things around traveling and things like that in the country, because the infrastructure is crumbling in the UK. You'd find it surprising, but the trains are very expensive, particularly when you're going from one major city to another, like London to Birmingham. So in many cases, it's cheaper literally to catch a flight from London to Europe or to Morocco and places like that, which are like short flights at like a couple hours. It's cheaper to catch a flight than catch a train from one major city to the other in the UK. That's how distorted the living costs are. So it's worthwhile considering what is your long-term goal, right? Many people are kind of getting fed up and considering what to do next, like he's going to discuss here.
So who's replacing them? That's the issue as well. Job market anxiety. I can relate to this entirely as a student with a BA in business. Absolutely no opportunity for me in Scotland. Nothing at the time without your experience. There's no want for you, even though at that time you went through the strain of getting that degree, of getting qualified. So as their approaches, where's the hope, right? There has to be more than just getting a dead-end job on the basic minimum wage with degrees, with master's degrees. What's the point in getting educated if that's the case? There's also that other option, that golden door where the key opens it and everything opens up, where there's a different reality outside of the UK. People will respect your degree, people will respect your master's degree, and they will treat you accordingly as well, and opportunities will come. So the issue with the UK right now is, job market. Where are the opportunities in the UK? For the young people, for the middle-aged, whatever it may be, where are the opportunities? And what I don't think the UK seems to understand is the most important generation is the next generation, right? Because for your country to have a future, for your country to change, we have to educate and teach and inspire and motivate that younger generation coming up. Is it there right now in the UK? Are we inspiring them? Are we motivating them? Are we teaching them? Are we giving them the skills that they need to make a difference for our country in the future? I don't think so. What I think that I'm seeing right now is we are them to leave the country. That's what.
And we're going to finish on, right? So this guy is talking about people leaving, right? There's job market anxiety, there's a lack of opportunities. And the thing is, typically when you need some of these jobs, you need a senior level of experience. So there's people who are more junior at the graduate level, they're trying to find their next job and they just can't do it, right? And then what he's talking about, the golden door of people leaving the West, because typically if you get qualifications in the West or some experience in the West, it's highly valued in other locations, other continents, right? Parts of Eastern Europe, Asia, parts of Africa, Latin America, developing economies, where they might be more keen to hire you. They'll say, okay, well, you can move here, you can work here. Maybe it's not on the highest salary, but at least you have a stable income. You're working in another market. You can understand another job market and develop and broaden your skills there. But they'll if you went to a top UK university, because they might consider that, well, okay, well, he's bringing some status and prestige to our company. And the thing is, like I say, a lot of high quality people are leaving. And to put it as nicely as I can, this way the system is being set up, this social contract, is high quality people are leaving. He's working in Korea, he's been working abroad for over a decade. You have brain drain, like I say, high skilled people moving abroad, and who's coming to the country? It's people who are living off benefits, right? It's people who don't have a stake in the long-term success of this country. Maybe migrants who are just kind of here because they're getting the free handout and living in a fancy hotel, or their government is paying for them to have a large family, right? Or subsidizing their living costs dramatically. This system is setting up high quality people, high IQ people to fail or leave or get extorted from tax, like this particular scenario. There's no incentive to be a hardworking, high quality person. And that's where you see standards of everything dropping. People are like, what's the point, right? And the same thing with brain drain, or another controversial term, white flight, where white people tend to leave, where, the crime and diversity might go up. I know these are simplified ways of looking at things, but the whole point is that the system is not setting up any good incentives to succeed and work hard. So people are just settling for less or just giving up, right? And that's what it is in this sense. It's kind of like, what's the point of working hard if we're all going to end up with the same outcome, right? If I live in a one-bedroom apartment that I'm paying for myself, and then someone living on government, right, and getting food stamps or whatever you want to call it, government benefits, they're living in just an older version of a small apartment which is funded by the government. What's the difference in quality of life? That person actually has more freedom. Maybe they live in a lower quality of apartment or council flat, right? But they can do whatever they want in the day, right? And the government's going to pay for their food and their living costs, right? And they might have a worn out property that they live in, but their time freedom is more than someone like me who might be working in a corporate job. And this is the type of weird dynamics you start noticing. How many single mothers are there getting handouts from the government? So it really does make you think. Now, if you've interested in trying to improve your situation and break free from this broken social contract, I'm going to be covering more strategies in my future videos on this kind of video series. But I've worked in the finance industry over a decade. Goldman's, Morgan Stanley are the top banks. And I have a career coaching program, which I work with my clients, link in description if you want to speak with me directly, to help you develop a high income career. How to outsmart office politics, deal with these weird social dynamics at work, and how to really survive and thrive and set yourself up for promotions, dealing with layoffs, and how to accelerate your success rather than getting caught up in a really dysfunctional financial situation that many people are caught up in with that diagram that I mentioned at the start. So link in the description if you want to speak with me directly. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this broken social dynamic. 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.